Welcome to Crossing the River, a podcast that amplifies the voices of Indigenous leaders from around the world. In each episode, they share their wisdom, experiences, and urgent advice for a world in crisis. Before we begin, know that Crossing the River takes a deliberate and distinctive approach to translation. You will hear the voices of Indigenous leaders directly. This is an invitation to listen deeply, to feel their message in their own words, and to pay attention to meaning beyond language, embracing the power behind their voices. This is an invitation to cross the river. Crossing the River is produced by the More Than Human Life Moth Project, based at the Center for Human Rights and Global Justice at NYU School of Law and 070 Podcast.
It's from our indigenous way, cultural way of saying hello or greetings. Then when I say I'm greeting you. My name is Mpatheleni, but people shorten my name Mpathe. I am Mpatheleni Makaulule from South Africa. I'm coming from the nation of Venda.
It's a summer afternoon in December 2024. Mpatheleni Makaulule is in South Africa, in the territory of her people, the Venda people. She sits outside her home to catch some breeze while the birds in the tree above her sing. Mpatheleni is wearing a bright teal knitted head tie with red, white, yellow, and blue stripes. Over her shoulders, she wears a wraparound cloth of the same colors. Big rectangular glasses frame her face. Indigenous struggles all over the world have many forms and strategies. For Mpatheleni Makaulule, protecting her territory means protecting her language. The words her people, the Venda people, use to relate to their land. This is why Mpatheleni became an Indigenous leader, but also a linguist, a teacher, and an archivist. She documents the knowledge of her elders, recovering and safeguarding the wisdom embedded in their language. For her, this mission is deeply personal, tied to the very meaning of her name.
It means like construct or build something for me. My name came from the verb upata. Upata means build or construct or establish. It has many meanings. You can build a house, you can build a nation, you can establish a gathering, you can establish a clan.
Mpatheleni sees preserving her people's language and traditions as a calling, one that safeguards their culture and connection to the land.
And I take this name as a serious meaning about my life. It's a calling. It's a call that I have to rebuild again. Our nation, we are Venda people. The territory is called Venda. And our language is called Venda.
The Venda Nation is located in the extreme northeastern corner of South Africa, near the borders of Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Botswana.
And our way of life, indigenous way of life of Venda, is called Chivenda Way. Chivenda Way and Venda territory is the big territory which has big mountains.
When Mpati speaks in Ruvenda, she is intentional. She is teaching us the language of her territory, documenting and sharing as a way of protecting this knowledge.
We are the clan of the indigenous healers and the clan of the spiritual guidance, where our spirituality is rooted in the forest, which we call them sacred forest. I come from that clan. And being born in that clan, it drove me naturally to have passion and feel that my well-being is rooted on the spirituality and the forest, rivers, and the natural way of life.
For decades now, Mpatheleni has recorded her elders' knowledge, those she calls libraries of knowledge. As a builder, honoring her name, she continues to bridge the connection between three inseparable pillars: the ancestral values, the language, and the land they inhabit. Mpatheleni's journey to leadership starts long before she was born. She comes from a clan of healers. And so, Mpati grew up surrounded by these knowledges and practices. It was her father who gave her the name she carries with pride.
My father was an elder. I was born when my father was 74 years old. And my father was a traditional healer, a traditional farmer, and a traditional leader.
But as her father grew old, other systems of knowledge brought by the colonization began to change things in her home, especially because of her uncle, her mother's brother, who returned to the family as a Christian.
Then my uncle then decided that they must take me away from my father because they were saying that my father is teaching me to be a healer, and this is a demon for them.
Her uncle wanted to replace the heritage from their Venda ancestors with Christianity, and he even burned a notebook that Mpati's father had left for her to keep. A notebook where he recorded all his healing knowledge, everything he knew.
Burning the book, naturally, the spirit built me and prepared me for something because I end up doing what I'm doing.
While she lived with her uncle, Mpati became sick and eventually decided to flee. She went to the only place that could offer her peace and healing, a forest at the foot of a sacred mountain called Lufhola.
I think the way of the path of our ancestor spirits, from my experience, they prepared you. They prepared you to be strong. They prepared you naturally because this knowledge comes. It was not that I have to read that book because the knowledge comes naturally. I developed that knowledge. I find myself having a development of the knowledge.
She spent 2 years alone in the territory, healing and learning, remembering and reconnecting with the sacred site, understanding the power of her name.
And this makes me to organize elders because what I do, I learn from the elders. The knowledge and the land is the territory. The land for us, we call it Shango. Shango is the whole territory, like Venda. Venda is called Shango of Venda.
The Venda language has a specific name for the territory, Shango. Mpati explains that this isn't simply a name for a place. It's a word that encapsulates all kinds of life. It refers to a specific ecosystem and all the beings that live there.
And this knowledge, we understand it and see it functional when we go back to use the local language of that Shango, of that land, of that territory. And for me, this is where I see knowledge and land, which is Shango.
There is a specific knowledge kept in each word. For example, with the grass.
Many types of grasses, which we know them in our language and we know the function of it.
Imagine this. In mountains so vast, home to 60% of Africa's bird life, 40% of its mammals, and 30% of its reptile species. In mountains so fertile and full of life, there is a name in Ruvenda for each kind of grass. And that name also holds the knowledge of what the function of each grass is.
Knowledge is in Shango, and Shango is knowledge. Because the local language is the one which flows the system. of living, the system of everything is knowledge. And when we use local language in every way, the local language is the one which has carried the knowledge.
A local language that exists in coherence with the local system of living beings. Indigenous languages like Venda are deep languages, capable of holding several layers of knowledge in a single word.
Knowledge is the local language and is the territory, is the land. I don't know if you get what I'm explaining, but knowledge is the one which carries everything.
The knowledge, the territory, the language. It's a constant weaving. And if you disconnect the words from the land, then the knowledge is lost.
Knowledge is the spirit. We can't touch knowledge. We cannot carry knowledge by our hand. We cannot go and take knowledge from another place and say it's knowledge. Knowledge is the spirit. We can't touch it.
For Mpati, being a builder and a leader means sharing Venda culture with others. As she talks about the bond between the territory and the people, she emphasizes the ancestry of their language.
Venda is characterized by the indigenous people and also the people who came and traveled all the way and came to Venda many years, 100 years ago, and find that they speak the same language and they become the Venda people.
The Venda people are thought to be one of the last groups to arrive in South Africa. Made up from different nomadic peoples, their recorded history dates back to the 9th century, under the Mapungubwe kingdom. As they were united by the similarities in their language, they settled on the South Bansberg Mountains, until the apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation that existed from 1948 to the early 1990s. In 1979, the Venda people were assigned a Bantustan, or homeland, that covered an area of 6,500 square kilometers. They were assigned a land that was considered independent and no longer part of South Africa, meaning they had no political rights in the country. Bantustans were widely criticized as a means of dispossession, as it forcibly divided communities and disregarded their cultural and historical connections to the land.
And the Venda is a huge place, like a country also, even though it is now demarcated as one country of South Africa. It's huge.
As Mpati says, Venda territory was reintegrated into South Africa in 1994, towards the end of apartheid. Since then, the Venda people have remained in the territory, attempting to safeguard their way of life. A way of life shaped by the subtropical mountains and sacred sites.
In those mountains, in those valleys, there are rivers. There are huge wetlands. And there are valleys. And in those places is where there are sacred forests. And these mountains and the valleys, we have this huge tree called baobab.
Baobabs are massive African trees, often referred to as upside-down trees because their branches, which resemble roots, seem to be flipped. Baobabs are considered a prehistoric species, and some in the area are thought to be over 3,000 years old, making them living witnesses of ancient times. These trees are accompanied by myriads of other beings.
We have animals from the elephants up to the tiny rabbit, zebras, buffaloes, rhino, giraffes, many bird types. We have lots of huge trees. We have animals. Even though now they are caged in a game park and in other places like Kruger National Park.
In Mpati's territory, the more than humans roam freely. But in Kruger National Park, one of South Africa's most renowned wildlife reserves, the animals in these areas are often caged or confined to specific zones for the purpose of controlled viewing. While Kruger and other safaris are celebrated for their conservation efforts, these national parks were created as a mechanism to forcibly displace the indigenous people that used to live on those sites. For Mpati, this is a symptom of a bigger problem for her people and territory.
The problem is when you remove the forest of the sacred site, the sacred forest. When you remove those plants, when you debush and remove the forest, you are removing the home of this spirit. The spirit cannot stay in a land where there is no forest. For us, our spirituality is in the forest. It's not in the building where you can build and go and say, I'm praying there. There's no spirit there. Our spirit is in the forest. In my home, in my nation, or in Venda, we have mupo, the word mupo, which means natural creation of everything. When we see the sky, the stars, the moon, the sun, it's mupo. And when we see the light now, it's mupo light. Rivers is a mupo. Mountain is the mupo. Forest, the way it is was from the grass, from soil, from stones, from animals, from insects. It's a mupo. And what created that is mupo. Mupo is the spirit that created the natural creations of the universe.
Mupo, the spirit of creation. Mupo is contained in every living being. Mupo is learned. It is a way of life.
We grow in the family of tradition and it was a Mupo way of life. Then knowledge of Mupo develop and come in our veins and we understand that. And we respect that.
In Venda practices, you learn about Mupo. You learn about Shango, the territory, and you carry the knowledge of Mupo in the words you speak.
Mupo is language. The local language is created by Mupo.
Mupo, the spirit that created the universe, is held in the local language, a language created by Mupo itself. Mpati, like other Matkasis, female keepers of sacred knowledge, have worked for generations to keep this knowledge alive against the threat of other systems of thought.
Like here in South Africa, coming from the colonization, as we call it, that where the other ideas from somewhere they come and change the system of life. And that system, they brought the new governance system which does not connect with nature. But the government do not respect Mopo, do not pay attention on Mopo. The education system didn't pay attention on the importance of Mopo from the first curriculum which is developed to make the education system. It never paid attention to Mopo.
Ever since colonization began making its way through Africa, the erasure of these traditional ways of thinking has put the territory at risk. Instead of nurturing the balance between humans and more than humans, these external influences have promoted a worldview that separates people from the environment.
Now the Christianity came, where the missionaries came to Venda here and not Venda in Africa. The missionary coming to teach the people about the Bible and God. They didn't teach people God in the connection of Mupo. They didn't pay attention on the forest. They didn't pay attention on the importance of it. The missionary which came through with religion principles, they deny and discourage the indigenous ways and discourage Mupo.
Mpati has seen how the degradation of the Venda knowledge threatens her land. The expansion of mining projects, the construction of resorts and hotels near sacred sites and sacred forests. It has led to environmental degradation, pollution, and disruption of Mupo.
And this is why there is a generation which do not have that knowledge. And because the intention or the plan, the mission was to capitalize everything that people will live with money. Water, everything must be dammed. That money make everything and change the system of Mupo. I think that is the reason.
Because of this, in 1999, she founded the Lufhola Cultural Village, where she taught children traditional dances and supported women in learning their ancestral crafts. In 2007, she created the Mupo Foundation to help preserve and revive biological diversity in South Africa. 2 years later, alongside other Matkasis, female keepers of sacred knowledge, she co-founded Zomo la Mupo. Zomo la Mupo is a community-based organization dedicated to protecting a network of sacred sites in the Venda region. As she mentioned before, the Venda are the people of sacred sites, and Mpati, along with other women, is organizing to protect them.
Zomo la Mupo, which means the voice of the Mother Earth, where Zomo la Mupo vision is to protect nature in all its forms, focusing more on the sacred sites, because sacred sites interconnect to the well-being from the food and seed systems and the intergenerational learning of the world.
When we started this conversation with Mpati, the sun was just starting to set. Birds were singing. As the light begins to dim around her, the crickets announce the coming of nighttime. Mpati has taught us about her territory, Shango, the deep bond between the language of Ruvenda and the knowledge, Mupo, and how this knowledge is woven together by the people. Despite the hardships in her path, or the growing risks the more than human world faces, she knows there is a deep knowledge that is alive.
I have a huge hope and I stand firm in what I believe on, and not me alone. We women, we call ourselves we moon. Mupo created the women as moon. We are called we moon because the moon, when traveling, it's traveling in us. That's why we flow a river of red. We women, we are called Makazi. Makazi is the moon. Makazi is the role played by a woman.
What does it mean to build? Mpati says that this is the meaning of her name, and she takes it seriously. But how do you build, reconstruct what is being lost? The knowledge, the land, the spirits.
Today is a very important time. This is the time where women have to stand and learn. Reconnect back to find solutions. Climate change is hitting us. We are looking for solutions. There are many organizations, many gatherings which people are gathering to remember their roles.
By protecting the language that holds the knowledge of her people. By organizing with other women. By living a Mupo lifestyle. Mpati's hope is that more women will remember their deep connection to the more than human world.
We are the knowledge holders to transcend this to the generation after generation. And my hope is when all women in the world go back and remember their indigenous way or their original ways. Learn about how the river was protected, how the mountain was, what is the role of the forest. But if we do not first look at the moon is women. We are the Mother Earth. That is the hope.
Her hope is that we can still learn. To learn about Mupo and all the keys it holds for the protection of the more than human world. To look up to the sky and remember that women mirror the cycles of the moon. To follow Mpati's footsteps and go where the knowledge is.
The forest is our biggest teacher. It's our healer. It's our knowledge. It's our school. It's our university. It is where we get the knowledge.
Crossing the River is a podcast from the More Than Human Life program Moth, based at the Center for Human Rights and Global Justice at NYU School of Law and 070 Podcast. Thank you, Mpatheleni Makaulule, for sharing your words and knowledge with all of us. This episode was co-created by Carlos Andres Vaquero Diaz from Moth, Natalia Arenas, and me, Goldie Levy. The sound design and mix was made by Andres Villegas. The images of this podcast are made by Nefasta. The music is from Cosmo Sheldrake. If you want to learn more about this project, please visit mothlife.org. Thank you for listening.